and welcome to Joggrid with Miss Whittaker. Write down today's date and then start the Do Now quiz. Off you go. Pause me while you do that. Okay, if we scroll down, you can correct your answers in green pen off the answers on the worksheet. Pause me while you do that. Okay. Last lesson, we looked at London's transport system and the Boris bikes. And we were looking at those because we were trying to work out how London could solve its traffic congestion problem. So this has been a whole course of lessons. We started off by looking at why traffic congestion was a problem and the effects that had, and you wrote some good 9 markers on that. Now we're starting to think about the solutions, and this is the last solution that London's got to its traffic congestion problem. I'll take you through the reading. Track the reading whilst I read it to you. Congestion charge. London's congestion charge is designed to reduce traffic congestion by charging people driving into central London. The charge covers a 21 square kilometre area in London. It's a simple system. If you enter the zone between 7 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. on a weekday, you will pay a flat daily rate. The charge has risen gradually from £5 in 2003 to £11.50 today. Residents receive a 90% discount, and registered disabled people can travel for free. Emergency services, motorcycles, taxis and minicabs are exempt. Key measures show it's been a success. In 2006, Transport for London, TfL, reported that the charge reduced traffic by 15%. This effect has continued to today. The amount of traffic in the charging zone is now nearly a quarter lower than a decade ago. However, the scheme has been criticised for hurting the poorest more than the rest. For a Londoner on a wage of £15,000 who drives into work every day, the charge amounts to a massive 11% of their income. While for high earners like city bankers, who earn on average £40,000, the charge amounts to a tiny 0.04% of their incomes. It is argued even the homeless will suffer. The campaigners argue as Salvation Army's lorries driving blankets and soup will not have to pay the charge. But London's richer 50% of households provide 70% of car-owning households and 88% of those who drive to work in the city centre. Studies suggest that very few poor people take their cars into the centre. Many do not even own cars. Indeed, the poor are much less likely to drive in London than elsewhere. In fact, the congestion charge will create £130 million profit, £84 million of which is spent on improving London's buses, which are mostly used by poorer Londoners. More manageable traffic levels will bring other benefits to London's least advantaged. Residents of inner city estates will experience reduced noise and air pollution. That adds up to improved health. For those who earn their living moving around in central London, faster traffic flow should mean more cash. Okay, let's just summarise what the congestion charge is. Central London, so 21 square kilometres in central London, is the area in which you get charged. If you drive into that area, cameras will read your number plate and they'll automatically charge your car £11.50. So anyone choosing to go into central London will be charged at £11.50. The idea is that because you're charged to go in, you'll be put off driving and you'll get on the tube or you'll get on a bus instead. And it has been really successful. It has reduced the amount of traffic. But especially when it came out, people started arguing that it was unfair. Because for someone who's really rich, let's say a banker in the city, £11.50 a day is nothing. But if you don't earn very much money, if you're in poverty and you're driving, and £11.50 is a very large amount of money for you. But Over time, it was worked out that this argument was a load of rubbish because the poorest people in London don't own cars anyway, so they're not driving into work, so they're not charged. And what it meant was by charging the richer people who were driving the cars, you could spend the money that you made on improving the buses. So poorer people benefited because the buses were improved from using money that they got from the congestion charge. And we know that people in poverty, or as the reading calls it, the least advantaged residents, are disproportionately affected by traffic congestion. So the impacts of traffic congestion are more severe for people in poverty because they're more likely to live in areas which have very congested roads. So by reducing traffic congestion, you are benefiting the poorest households anyway. If you go down to the next page, there is a flow diagram. Same as we've been doing in the other lessons, using the reading, complete the flow diagram. Just write down the number in your books and then the missing answer. Or I know some people have been printing them off and filling them in. Either way, whatever works for you, complete the flow diagram using the reading. Pause me while you do that. Right, let's talk through this flow diagram. We know that there's an £11.50 charge for entering central London. And that's good because it discourages people from travelling. People don't want to pay, so they don't use their cars, they get on the tube instead or buses. And that's been very successful. There's been a 15% reduction in traffic. But it doesn't affect the people who really need to use their cars. So if you're disabled, you don't have to pay. If you're a local person, so if you live in the area and you need to get around, you also don't. You get a 90% discount, so basically you don't have to pay. This means that people who have to use their car are not affected. It seems unequal, but actually it's not unequal because poorer residents are less likely to own cars. Poorer residents, therefore, are less likely to be charged, which means that it's unlikely to cause them financial problems. It benefits poorer residents because they're most likely to use the buses, and £80 million of the profits from the scheme have been spent on improving bus services, which means that the bus services have improved. Because the bus services are now better, more people are likely to use the buses. Again, that's having a bigger impact on reducing traffic congestion. However, for richer people, the charge is only a small percentage of their wages, how much they earn. So the richest people are continuing to use cars, meaning that the traffic isn't reduced as much as it could be if they had a higher charge. Also, the charge only applies between 7 AM and 6 PM. So what you do, instead of doing your shopping before 6 PM, you just go out in your car and you do your shopping after 6 PM. People are continuing to use their cars, just not at the times that they used to use them. This means that the traffic again is not being reduced as much as it could be if the charge applied all the time. Green pen your answers using this model. Pause me while you do that. Right, we're going to put this into a 9 marker now. The 9 marker is evaluate a strategy to reduce traffic congestion in a HIC city. But I don't want you to write this out as a 9 marker. I just want you to do a plan. So like we've been doing in class, where we just pick apart the question and annotate it, that's what I want you to do. So your first stage is to underline the keywords in the question. You can see in the model down here, I've done that. I've underlined evaluate, I've underlined strategy, and I've underlined any city. The model is a different question, so you can't copy the model, but the model shows you how to go about planning your question. Then the next thing you've got to do is start annotating the question. So I need you to annotate the strategy part of the question with a strategy that you've studied in this lesson. In note form, not in full sentences, plan a chain of reasoning for each paragraph. So we go to the model down here The model is a different question. So the model is evaluate a strategy to improve the quality of life of the urban poor in an NEE city. Then I've just briefly planned out the chains of reasoning or the argument that I'm going to use in each paragraph. You can see that here. Paragraph 1, it was successful because of the indoor plumbing, which led to sewage being separated to improve sanitation, which led to less diseases. When I write that up, if I was writing that up, I would expand on these points. But just for the purposes of this exercise, in note form, write out the brief points you would cover if you were going to write this. Do that for paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. Do include specifics. So although you are writing in note form, include the key bits of knowledge that you would write if you were writing this up as an answer. Keep referring back to my model to help you. As I said, it does plan a different question, but it still shows you how to plan an answer. This is a super quick exercise, so do not spend more than 5 minutes on this. And when you're done, email your plans to me. And if you're working on paper, just send me a photo. If you're on a Word document, attach the Word document or just copy and paste the text into the email. Either way is fine, but do send me what you've done. It's really good for me to give you feedback and check that you're understanding what I'm teaching you. If you scroll down, you've got a different question. Now, this question I do want you to write out in full. So the question is here. Using figure 4 and your own knowledge, to what extent will the greenhouse development enable more sustainable living? Right. So this is a bit of a tricky question because it's got a figure with it. So the first thing you've got to do is read through the figure. In your first paragraph, you're going to choose one fact from the figure, just one. I know that there is a lot of information in that figure, but you only need to include one fact. You then need to expand on your explanation of that fact. So does the aspect that you've picked out of the greenhouse development enable sustainable living? Paragraph 2, you have to use your own knowledge. So paragraph 1, use figure 4. Paragraph 2, use your own knowledge. Right, this is where it gets slightly complicated, but I'm sure you can get your head around it. If you've argued in paragraph 1 that the greenhouse development has enabled sustainable living, then because we need balance, you need to choose one fact about London that you can say does not enable sustainable living. If in paragraph 1 you've said that the greenhouse development does not enable sustainable living, in paragraph 2 you need to choose one fact about London that you can argue does enable sustainable living. If you scroll down, on the next page are the flow diagrams that we looked at for London. They're there to help you if you need them. Again, I do want this writing out in full. They need to have an introduction, it must have a conclusion, and we're really focusing on using specific examples. When you're finished, email your answers to me, and next lesson I can give you some feedback. Excellent. Thank you very much.